As Jeff said, my name's Justin Robbins. I'm a senior planner at OHM Advisors, certified planner. We've been working with the community for probably going on, I would say, 5 months now. I want to point out my staff members I have in the audience. This is Mario right here. Say hi.
Hey.
And then there's Erin that's out in the atrium, and she probably had you guys sign in. So if any of you guys have questions throughout the evening, any one of us three can hopefully answer them. Just to give you a brief overview of, I think, what we have planned for tonight. My mouse will work. I'm going to give an introduction to who we are, who I am. Give you a little bit of an overview of the project, so try and orient you guys onto what we're doing and what we hope to get from this meeting. Go over some preliminary existing conditions that we've done as part of this. Going to go into a little bit of the public input snapshot. So we've had a couple of surveys go out, and we're starting to get results back. So we have, while they're not final, we have some preliminary results from that to share with you, and they're pretty interesting. And after that, we're going to break into an open house format. So what we really want to do with this meeting is to hear from you all.
Sorry to interrupt. They can't hear you up there, so
Oh, no.
you need to speak a little louder.
Okay, I'll have to reorient myself. I'll hide behind the lectern. We really want to hear from you guys. I'm from Columbus, Mariel's from Mississippi, Erin is from New Hampshire. But you all are from Wadsworth, and you all are the experts on Wadsworth. So in terms of where this community goes and what this plan is going to recommend, it certainly has to align with the goals and the visions that you all have for the downtown. Let's see if I can get this going. Okay, who we are. As Jeff had mentioned, we are OHM Advisors. We have offices, I think we're at 10 right now, primarily in Southeast Michigan, but also Columbus and a new office in Brecksville. Jim, do you want to raise your hand? We have one of our engineers right now sitting in the audience who is also a resident of Wadsworth, so we're glad to have you here. We're a firm of architects, engineers, and planners. The Columbus office is our main office for, I would say, the design-focused groups, so planning, landscape architecture, and architecture, all based out of Columbus. And we actually just consolidated into a pretty neat space in Smith Brothers. It's kind of like working in Google, but it's a pretty fun atmosphere. As it pertains to this project, I think a lot of what's going to really matter is some of the land planning, community planning, the urban design and redevelopment, and the physical planning. We do a lot of visioning as well, and that's one thing that I think this plan will have quite a bit of. And as I mentioned, one of the things we need to do is really figure out where this community wants the downtown to go, and we're going to backfill our expertise with how to get there. Here's a snapshot of some of the offices we have around town. And just to give you an idea of the scope and scale and breadth of experience that we have, 10 community plans in the past 2 years. I'd probably up that to 15 at this point. 65 mixed-use planning projects, 100-plus roads projects within 300 miles, zoning projects. So pretty heavily involved in both the planning and engineering portion of what it takes to build a city. Nationally recognized, so these are some slides I always like to throw up there. We do pride ourselves on being a fun place to work. Part of that is having the ability to attract the brightest and best talent to the organization, including Mario and Erin out there.
Or yourself in there too.
Well,
Yeah, I would.
so one of the questions I was asking myself and in addressing a crowd like this is not everybody might have a good understanding of why a plan like this would be necessary. Why is the downtown important? Why are we selecting the downtown for this special attention? And I think it's something that needs answered. And what I plan to do is just go through, I think, a couple bullets that really outline what I think is important in a downtown, how it functions within the context of the community, and really why there's this focus. So, in thinking about it, you have this area, this district right now that has been here for a very long time, and hopefully it's going to be here for a very long time. So you have a really strong historical connection. So it ties the generations of Wadsworth residents together. Not only for you guys reaching back, but hopefully for your kids and your grandkids and those folks going into the future. And you have a really neat opportunity right now to make sure that what you do in this downtown lasts several generations ahead. So it's not a museum, it's a place that gets built and it gets changed, but hopefully when you come in, you leave it better than when you found it. When your kids look back, they can think, my grandfather used to get donuts here or get coffee here and help build these buildings back in the 1800s. It's the beating heart of the city. So it is a critical mass of activities, both commercial, cultural, and civic. This is really what defines a city and what makes cities exciting is you get all these people in one area and it really becomes more than the sum of its parts. Not only that, but it's a barometer. So it's a barometer for your community. The success of this downtown is really, I think, what people will take into consideration when they kind of pass judgment on Wadsworth. They drive through and it's a thriving place with people walking around. It's a great place to be. And that's the most identifiable thing that you're going to remember when you leave the city. It's a place that you would, and I just try to come up with some ideas here, it's where you're going to take a visitor when they come to Wadsworth. It's where you might propose to your spouse, and I'm thinking of the gazebo in particular. It might be where you celebrate the accomplishments of the community, such as parades or any other type of event. Celebrate the holidays, again with the events, and then to start an independent business. That's really important. It's these things that are unique that make this place unique. And it's a great place to do it, where you have people from Wadsworth that can come in and start a business for themselves and really shape the face of the community. In short, it is a place out of all the other places in the city where people can feel as part of the community, both past, present, and future. It's unique to Wadsworth, and it cannot be reproduced. This downtown is different than every other downtown in America, but I can promise you if you go north to the Walmart, it's going to be pretty similar to every other Walmart in America. So this is your community as this downtown. It's both authentic and permanent, and the success you have today will be enjoyed by generations to come. So as planners, we always try and take the long view, and we think, what's our place in history? What's our context? Why are we doing this? How can we make it better? And with that, I'm going to give you a bit of an overview with the project. So we have some key dates. So we had a survey that you guys have probably received in the mail. Utility bill survey. We're starting to get a lot of those back. There's an enormous amount. I think we have over 450 right now. In addition, we have a survey that's available through, what's the website? Downtown Wadsworth 2016.com. It matches the same water bill survey that was mailed out. We have over 400 responses to that right now, and we're going to go over some of those just very briefly in tonight's meeting. We have some small idea gathering meetings. So prior to this meeting, I met with a couple groups of stakeholders throughout the day to really listen to what they had to say. And then we're going to have another public open house on, I think, is this date tentative or not, May the 24th, but we'll be sure to update on the website and make sure that everybody's aware of that. So what's going to happen between now and then is we're going to take everything that we hear from you guys and really start to solidify it into some goals, some objectives, and try and figure out what it is in the downtown that this plan can recommend to really push it forward. So the project understanding. I say this, and it's almost a set of goals, but it's how we're viewing this project. What's the lens of the project? What is it that we're trying to accomplish? So to evaluate the organizational structure to manage downtown projects, programs, and communities. To build consensus around a desired vision and identity, theme and brand. Part of what we need to do is really evident in this meeting, is just getting people in the same room together and talking, getting some buy-in from folks and really letting them understand what the vision of the downtown is so everybody can be a part of it. To create a clear blueprint and implementation plan to execute the vision. So it's not only just figuring out where we need to go, it's trying to figure out how we get there. Real actionable steps, real projects, policies, or programs that can start to achieve those goals, can help push the plan forward. To identify priority projects. Again, with those projects, plans, actions, this is a list of things that'll be very specific, and we'll actually draw them out, render them out. If it's whatever comes out of this meeting is our marching orders, and we will continue on to see how that will fit in with the context of Wadsworth. To improve the aesthetic appearance of the public realm. The public realm is kind of the connective tissue between all these different groups, right? You have your buildings, you have commerce, you have apartments, residential, all these things, and they're shared by the public space that kind of wraps around them, the street, the park, the gazebo. All these things matter, and all these things will help to make those other private uses better. So, and lastly, to communicate the opportunity. This is a slide I always put in there, but I think it's really important as we move forward with these projects, is to make sure that the private side understands what the vision of the community is. They want to know what they're buying into, and they want to know what the opportunity is. So in terms of site-specific areas, where is there the potential for development? What kind of development? What's the character of development? who are we trying to reach? So those are the answers that we're trying to get to with this plan. And what can we boil it all down to? I love these two words, communication and coordination. This document will be a coordination document, both in terms of the private and public side, outline plans, policies, procedures for the public, with the thought that it will help out on the private side. So nobody can do it alone. The idea is that all the forces working together with one common goal are going to be a lot better than anybody trying to take it on themselves. So as far as the approach goes, we're really in phase 3 right now, and these phases kind of blend into each other, so understanding the context, we're still in that phase right now. But we're in community engagement. Again, our whole idea with this meeting is to listen to you folks. And a quick note. So doing this plan is not going to solve all your problems. It will not magically make things happen. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to do that. But in having the plan, it will set forth the direction by which those efforts and all that time will go toward. So downtown revitalization is hard work. I think anybody that's tried it or is doing it on a daily basis knows that. There's no silver bullet. There's not going to be a single project that we're going to recommend that really solves everything. It takes time. It takes direction. And it must be intentional. So this is not going to happen haphazardly. We have to be very intentional about what we do and where we're going. It must both be comprehensive and strategic. Now, when I say that, I talked about some of those policies, programs, actions that are going to be they could be site-specific. They might recommend green space. But it also is looking at the entire context. What is it like when you drive into Wadsworth from the freeway? How are people getting to the city? What's the relationship between the city and the other communities? So those are things that we take into consideration. And it must involve both the private and public sector. As I mentioned, you can't do anything yourself. So with districts like this, we find the best way forward is to make sure that there are public-private partnerships that really understand what they're working towards. And the last one is it will pay off. So not easy. It's not quick, but you will see progress. And when you do, it'll be exciting. So as part of that, we started a brand identity for this project. And I got to say that this is not the brand of the downtown. This is the branding of this project. You can see the top one right here. We came up with a couple of concepts, and with our steering committee, I'm sorry, you can't see my mouse. But the one up here is the one that was originally, or one that was chosen. You'll see that in all our boards out there branded for the project. What does it do, though? It helps build credibility. It helps build interest from the general public, serves as the main messaging to the media, and it'll add visual interest to the final plan and online engagement. And again, as I mentioned, it is not the brand for downtown Wadsworth. So I want to talk a little bit about the engagement strategy, how we're going about listening to all you folks. 4 task force meetings, 2 public meetings, this being the first, 2 small group meetings, 2 elected officials meetings, online engagement, and community survey. If there's anybody in this community that wants to be involved, they have ample opportunity to do so. Nobody is going to have the ability to say, well, I didn't know, or I was too lazy. I mean, I play on my phone all day long, and I can get on and take a survey pretty easily. And it's just, I think, the way it is today is not everybody has time to come to a public meeting like this. So we do provide the ability to reach people where they can be. This is a snapshot of the website. Aaron, do you have a count right now of how many visitors we've had to date?
I think this week alone we've had over 600.
Wow. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's pretty good. I think with the surveys, so we're now at 800 and 600 web views with just in the past week. I mean, it's a pretty active community in terms of engagement. Existing conditions. So this is going to be brief. I just want to give you guys a taste of some of the things that we're looking at, some of the considerations that we're kind of moving towards. The first is population. When we do population, it's not really enough just to say, well, Wadsworth is this, but we have to see it in context of what's the downtown doing, what's the city doing, and what is the county doing. And you can see in this little area that I have circled, we have significant growth both in the city of Wadsworth and Medina County at 14 and 17%. The downtown itself has experienced over 10 years from 2000 to 2010 a decrease in population, 0.5% or less. Now, the downtown's built out for the most part. I don't want to say built out, but it's fully developed. There's not a lot of greenfield space, which is my guess what you're seeing a lot of these numbers from. But there is still the potential for that. So I want you guys to keep that in mind. The median age. So in the downtown study area, we're looking at about 38, which is pretty much in line with the city of Wadsworth. It's a little bit younger than the county as a whole, which is at 40. What's interesting, though, is at 16%, you have a little bit of a higher population of 65 and older. So I think a lot of the residents here are probably ones that have lived here for quite a while, and they're just kind of moving into their senior lives. And I would say that data pretty much helps support what we're seeing in national trends. So there's nothing too incredible there. The big one is vacant housing. This is census data. But as I was telling you, at 17%, it's significantly higher than both within a walking distance, quarter mile from the study area, the city as a whole, and the Medina. And as you keep moving up into that larger area, that vacant housing goes down and down. So there is, I think, a lot of opportunity to, depending on the structure and the building, hopefully backfill that with some of the folks that do want to move downtown and would have the ability and the vision to start fixing up some old houses. And for anybody unaware, this is our project study area. I don't have the roads memorized right now, but basically Prospect to the north, we're at Kyle to the west, East Street to the east, and then Walnut Street to the south. I threw land use up here because this is one of the exciting parts about downtowns like this, is if you were to go up toward the intersection or probably any other part of the city, this would mostly probably be one or two colors. This downtown is a true mixed-use district, so you're going to see a lot of colors in there, which is a really good thing. There's a lot of activity happening, and there's a lot of those uses that can feed off of each other, so it's our hope that that carries on and continues. And we also take a look at what those land uses are in terms of proportion to the city. So you can see the red right here is our commercial area. We have residential in the yellow, and then I think it's exempt in the teal. The exempt, if anybody's unaware, it's government offices, government property, churches, schools, that kind of thing. This is pretty typical with what we see in a community like this. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've heard from the survey so far. As far as the print surveys go, we are still in the process of encoding those. It's a pretty laborious task to have Mariel sit there for hours and code those into Excel, but she's chugging right along.
It's a good time to listen to all your favorite music.
There you go. If anybody wants to donate their time and help, we're definitely amenable to that. We just pulled out some of the questions from the online survey just to give you guys an idea about what we're finding, and I think it's pointing in the right direction. How frequently do you visit downtown Wadsworth? Well, you can see over 45% visit it all the time. It's a really good number. Once a week is 20%, so you're at almost 70% of people who visit at least once a week. And the rest, I mean, the sliver that you have for never, 2%. That's excellent. What would you say are the primary reasons you visit downtown? Again, this is pretty indicative of a true mixed-use district. You have a lot of people visiting for a lot of different reasons. I can tell you the one that I've heard a little bit about is the restaurant and bars. I don't want to give too much away right now, but that's something that has come up, I think, time and again with this process, and not uncommon to see it in downtowns either. If your preferred choice of housing were available, would you consider living in downtown or within a 5 to 10 minute walk of the square? This is great. This is really good, where you have over 50%, 55% of the people saying that they would live within a walking distance of downtown. That kind of tells us that not everybody wants the greenfield development out to the north or to the south. They want somewhere that has walkable access to the amenities that they see as provided in this area. If you were looking to move into downtown or within a 5 to 10 minute walk of the square, which would you consider as a potential housing option? So single families, you can see at 44% is the biggest. But what I want you to do is take a look at the other side and say that 56% of the people want something different than single family homes. That's a pretty big number. Now, that breaks down to some different uses in terms of senior housing, condominiums, apartments, and duplexes. But we also have to understand that not everybody wants a single-family house, although that might be the answer for some people. Which of the following groups should Wadsworth strive to attract more of? A pretty even split. I mean, if we group senior citizens and empty nesters together, not that they're the same, but they're at the right side of the spectrum, let's say. We're at about a third, and a third. So families, young professionals, empty nesters, senior citizens. There's not seemingly one particular group of people that our surveys indicated the residents wanted to attract. Do you believe these groups would find adequate housing options in Wadsworth today? 67% said yes. 33% said no. So I think it'll be really interesting to hear what you all have to say about that, as it pertains to the next activities and as we start grading some of these surveys that came in through the mail. Important trends. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit, and this is kind of in context with what we are seeing both nationwide and in the state of Ohio. It's some things to keep in mind as we move out and start kind of interacting with some of our activities. So when do trends become the norm? We've had, over the past 7-9 years, a pretty substantial change in the housing market. We've seen the bottom drop out of single-family houses at the beginning of that time period, starting to come back. Condominiums, again, something that you don't see being built until probably just recently. But apartments have really gone through the roof. When I say apartments, I want to be very clear. This is not necessarily the types of apartments that you see in greenfield development. This is more of an infill style apartment that is higher quality, talking about rents that could fetch up to $1,000 to $1,200 a month. And these are the types of apartments that are really attracting the two generational groups that I'm going to talk about next, which is the millennials and the boomers. So here's a quick graph of some of the demographic profiles, I guess, demographic groups that we see in the United States. The two that I have circled right here are baby boomers and the millennials. I don't want to talk too much about these groups because everybody matters, but what's interesting about them is their size, and any potential change in the type of product or lifestyle that they want is going to have pretty significant impacts on cities. So let's say half of them, half is a big number, let's say 10% want a different type of lifestyle or a different type of residential product than is currently offered. That's going to be an immense amount of product that now the development community has to catch up with. What I can tell you is right now these folks are wanting walkable communities for the most part. They want that access. They want the access to daily services and to live in kind of a tighter knit community. I'll skip that one because it's boring. We'll talk about the baby boomers a little bit. So about 2.5% live downtown. 4% would like to live downtown. 15% overall would like to live in the city. Pretty big number. Entertainment, retail, medical services nearby. And this word that we're seeing a bit coming up now is LOHAS, which is lifestyles of health and sustainability. So they want to live the life of somebody who doesn't have to drive quite as much to do every single thing in the city. Go out, go to the park, walk around, see your neighbor, grab a drink, walk home, all that within walking distance. And then you have the millennials. So I stole this slide from one of my colleagues, and this is his favorite line. It's, what do they want? They'll text you. Ethnically diverse, so you're at 47% non-white. Greater preference for in-town areas and inner suburbs. I know a lot of the explosive growth that we've seen in Columbus in the past 5 years has been driven by this group of people wanting something that's close and urban and tight-knit. They tend to value place with diversity, walkability, proximity to jobs, and to fun. And I'm going to go ahead and say authenticity as well. I feel that less and less they are really wanting a place that's, for lack of a better word, contrived. It's something that somebody makes for them. They want something that's been here for 100 years, and they're kind of seen in the context of history. And where do they want to live? As I mentioned, you can see this blue right here at the bottom. This is our millennials, Generation X. So 31% would want to live in the city. Pretty big number. And what I want to make clear is when I say these things, I'm not saying that the single family house, this is fine for a lot of people. This is great for a lot of people. This is great for families. This is great for, a huge segment of our population, probably for a lot of residents in Wadsworth. But what I also want to say is this place is important too. And it's important to meet the needs, I think, of everybody in the community, everybody that you want to capture in the community as well. And one thing that I forgot to mention about the boomers is as they reach retirement, they're in working age, a lot of them are what we call snowbirds. They're at probably the peak in their career, so they're making the most money they're ever going to make. They don't have kids. They're not really drawing that much on city services. It's not a bad option from a city standpoint to make sure that these folks are retained and that the type of lifestyle that they want is an option within the city. And millennials as well. I mean, as it relates to people with families, you want to capture them as much as possible. Bring them to Wadsworth, make them stay into Wadsworth. When they have kids, when they buy a house, they have the option to stay here as well. Basically a full spectrum of housing that allows somebody to stay in the city no matter what kind of lifestyle that they want.